So, tell me, what has been bothering you? Well, recently I've been having this weird thing where I get bored playing video games, like all my motivation has been disappearing lately. I see. Well, what do you usually play? Mario. Is that all?
Maybe Sonic?
Anything that's not a platformer?
Pac-Man?
Okay, I think I see the problem. Here, get some variety in your life.
Thanks.
Although, have you ever considered your lack of motivation to be not because of the video games you play, but rather the fact that you haven't spoken to anyone other than yourself in years?
No.
The Legend of Zelda, a widely popular series of action-adventure games made by Nintendo where you get to fight with a sword, explore different lands, and die. A novel concept at the time of its creation, starting its run back in 1986 on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and ever since then has seen new sequels with this same playstyle released on literally, but not literally, every single one of this company's consoles, from the SNES to the Wii, to even systems of the non-Nintendo variety. Maybe you've heard of this franchise, maybe you've even played one or two entries, but I don't care about you, we're focusing on me. And for me personally, I was never really one of the lucky few who, as a kid, was blessed with an opportunity to get into The Legend of Zelda. I grew up with the Wii and DS, which did in fact have these type of games, however to me it was more about Mario, Kirby, Pac-Man, and Sonic back then. An enjoyer of only the most niche things in life. This was mainly due to the fact that that's really all my parents would buy me, minus a few stragglers, leading to myself rarely ever playing anything outside of those franchises, or really anything that wasn't a platformer. I became a basic bitch. So very predictably, when I got older, and the time came to choose for myself what new games to purchase, there was usually no competition. Now, to be fair, on some rare occasions, I have played some Zelda titles in the past, such as Age of Calamity, Breath of the Wild, A Link to the Past, that crossover one. Though that being said, only 2 of those I've actually beaten, being these 2, and as for the rest, I only ever made it about halfway before losing interest. However, recently, the idea of fully getting into the Legend of Zelda series has piqued my interest, and because I like making things complicated, whenever deciding to do something like this for any franchise, I always have to start at the beginning, mainly to understand its roots and how it has grown and changed since then, which is exactly what I'm gonna do here. Bam! The Legend of Zelda for the NES, released on August 22nd, 1986 in North America. What makes this specific game so special is, well, 1, it's the first in the lineup, but also, unlike the rest of the system's normal gray cartridges, here it's been given a gold finish that definitely helps it stand out visually. I plan on getting the box to this one day, as it also just looks cool. Oh yeah, but somewhere not too far down the line, for whatever reason, the game started getting resold as a regular gray cartridge for a short while before NES games stopped being manufactured altogether. So there's a bit of trivia for you. Okay, well, enough projecting my virginity. I think it's about time we get this experience started. Here we are, a quality title screen complete with animation, a prologue, as well as music. Always good to see from an NES game. Man, only thing that could make this even better is 3 separate save files with the ability to register my own name. Well, goddamn. So, after all that, we press start and get immediately thrown into the game. No long cutscenes, no tutorial. All we have to go by is whatever is on screen. And it's perfect. Straight to the point, as every game should be. First thing that becomes very apparent when looking at our starting point is this black square here, which is actually an entrance to a cave. And upon entering it, we find the line of dialogue that gets repeated too much in media, as well as our first weapon. With that, the journey has officially begun. Good luck. Alright, let me lay the groundwork for what this game is all about, and what we're supposed to do. So, according to that earlier information scrolling across the screen, which is the most hand-holding this game's ever gonna give you, Zelda's been kidnapped, and you gotta save her by defeating Ganon. Simple enough. However, you can only reach him by finding the pieces of the Triforce. Now we know our main objective. But what about the gameplay? Well, I'd say it's fairly simple enough. There's not much I can do with this controller that's more complicated than scratching my own ass, but I'll go over it anyways. As you know, we got this sword, which can be used to attack enemies and shoot laser beams whenever your hearts are maxed out as well. Great. On top of that, there's our sub-menu, which lets us access our soon-to-be obtained items, as well as show us the number of Triforce pieces we have. And lastly, we can walk. Where? Literally anywhere. Unlike a lot of other NES titles, this one in particular is actually more exploratory based, meaning even though there is a specific way to win, you don't necessarily have to go about it that way to get the same result. The entire game itself really is attempting that free exploration type of playstyle. The map you roam around is surprisingly huge, containing multiple types of biomes and a massive amount of hidden secrets to find. And almost all objectives are able to be done in any order, minus a few areas that are impossible to get through without upgrades or specific items, but regardless, you're still free to explore like 95% of the overworld without all that. So first thing I noticed upon doing the exploration, dying is very easy. You start out insanely weak with only 3 hearts to your name. Getting lost happens often, and many different types of enemies will relentlessly try to kill you. I don't know if I'm just bad at this style of gameplay, but holy shit, I died like 20 times before I actually managed to find anything useful, which ended up being a few bombs, and then right after finding them, I died again. Luckily, you won't lose any items after being defeated, provided you don't turn off the console before saving, so now I can finally use something else that isn't my sword. A fun little secret to know here is that hidden passages are strewn about the world map that usually consist of shops, items, hints, anything you'd usually find behind tons of rock, which can be revealed by blowing up walls. Exactly what I used these 4 bombs on. I found nothing my first go around, but it's cool that the possibility's there. However, without any more of those, it's back to exploring. And explore you will most definitely do. I'll state once more, the world you're given to adventure is pretty sizable for NES standards. There are plenty of items / power-ups dropped from enemies, such as rubies, this game's currency, stopwatches that freeze all enemies on screen, heart-recovering fairies, and additional heart pieces. Also, tons of things are entirely left for you to discover by yourself. And secrets aren't only found by blowing up walls. You can also push random rocks to reveal stairways, find weird statues that come to life, burn some bushes. It's essentially just a lot of that with almost no instructions or hints on where they are. And the clues you do get are also hidden away, in need of finding. Not that they were helpful anyways. The f*** is a peninsula? Brandon, if everything is so hard to look for, how do you go about beating the game then? Well, for some, using your brain would definitely help in piecing together the clues, memorizing routes, and noticing things out of place. But what if you're someone who hates the idea of discovering stuff for yourself and lacks any ounce of adaptive thinking? Then you could always wander around aimlessly, ramming your body into every rock and exploding every wall in hopes that you accidentally find something useful after about 5 hours straight of doing nothing but that, he says, speaking through experience. Or you could just look it up or something. I don't know. I mean, back then, people had strategy guides. The internet's just a faster yet equally ad-ridden version of that. I'm a man of principle, however, and I want to play this thing the way it was probably intended, without any outside help. And that's exactly what I'm gonna do. And wouldn't you know it, after 13 minutes of aimlessly roaming, I managed to find the first dungeon. There's a multitude of these residing across the map, and each one is swamped with enemies, secret passageways, traps, and mini-bosses. These will be important because each one contains a Triforce piece hidden inside, so you kinda have to go through them in order to get to the end of the game. And in classic beginning fashion, this first one was pretty easy. I even found a bow while managing to clear every room, including the boss with very few deaths, which sounds great. It excited me how fast I accomplished everything. But in hindsight, I guess I probably should have realized that feat would have given me a big head, because after adventuring a little more and immediately finding the next dungeon, I got murked. Again, and again, and again, and again. These enemies in particular were the worst things to deal with. Also, this boss fight is Fun. Yeah, that was painful. The jump-in challenge was kinda weird, but I'll just chalk it up to me not being prepared enough. Anyways, continuing on my quest, I managed to make my way to the top of this waterfall, and after copious amounts of death, I found the white sword, which increases my attack power by a specific amount, of which I definitely know. It's pretty helpful to have though. I even equipped myself with arrows for the bow, a candle for burning bushes / lighting rooms, and a raft for doing this. Hey, my third dungeon. I'm probably ready for this. He was not ready for this.
What?
Oh my god! What a difficulty spike! Seriously, it feels like there's something I'm missing. Like, I'm not prepared in the slightest, cause this fucking boss is back. But I have all these items and hearts, so these deaths, honestly, may just be due to my lifelong illness where I'm bad at everything. And nothing a bit of practice and 50 more deaths can't fix, however. And I escaped with what is probably a ladder and an extra heart container. Oh yeah, and my third Triforce piece, I guess. At this point in time, I still have zero idea how many Triforces there actually are to acquire, never bothered to find out. So while still blind to the truth, I'm going to say in full confidence that there's only like, one more left? Well, let's go find it. Oh shit, I am on a roll. Okay, so get this. There's this area towards the bottom left of the map called the Lost Woods. Trying to go through it will result in walking an infinite loop unless you can manage to walk the correct path. Only then will you achieve access to the next room. I found it by accident. Even wilder, that was an attempt of like 5 seconds total. Anyways, past that point, there is a graveyard that definitely has something of importance hidden here. Guess I'll find out later. And of course, the next dungeon. Alright. If I thought I wasn't prepared before, Jesus Christ. Back to grinding, I guess. And by that I mean messing with every single tile or sprite I could get my hands on. And, well, I did find something. Better armor has been acquired. We are moving up in the world. And as you'd imagine, with higher defense and even more hearts, this dungeon should become much less of an issue. Just too bad your imaginations are wrong. No lie, this is the most I have ever struggled during my entire playthrough so far. And it's all thanks to these wizards. To get what I mean, these things can shred off a whole heart with every attack. The higher level ones take like 3 or 4 hits with a sword to kill. None of your items harm them. And on top of that, they're all sporadically teleporting around. So when you can only obtain a key or a map or whatever by wiping out a full room of them, good fucking luck. Also, I never mentioned it before, but these white cotton ball orb looking things are in almost every single dungeon, and while they don't actually harm you, upon contact, they will disable your sword for a short amount of time. Now, let's connect some dots here. This is what we call cause and effect. Cause I'm unable to use my sword, the effect is I can't kill the enemies. Cause I can't kill the enemies, the effect is they kill me instead. Cause they kill me instead. However, once again, my perseverance claimed victory, and after some crying, of course. And that's a crab. And there he stood, back at the entrance of the dungeon once again. A pitiful victim to the birthright of mediocrity, as his morality became conflicted on whether to keep trying or just Google it. I Googled it. Apparently, you're supposed to shoot this crab in the eye once they open it, which I could have sworn I did, until looking back at the footage and discovering that I missed my window of opportunity by a frame. So that's fun. Guess that hint at the beginning of the dungeon makes more sense now. Can you really blame me though? How the fuck was I supposed to know what a Goma was? You can't throw random names out there and expect me to know what the hell you're talking about. Whatever. Either way, I got it. Then immediately the realization hit. There's not 4 Triforce pieces in total. In fact, I still don't know how many there actually are, so I guess we'll just find out, won't we? However, that was the least of my concerns, as I could not, for the life of me, find the next dungeon. I roamed around for hours and turned up nothing in all that time. Needless to say, I was at a bit of a roadblock. So with most of my life already taken up by this game, I had to speed things up somehow, but without cheating this time. Boom. Ah yes, the manual. Bought separately for $20 on eBay. Worth its weight in gold. Hey, getting help from something that literally came with the game doesn't count as cheating, meaning I can still be a good person. And lo and behold, this thing was actually pretty helpful too. It expands on the story a bit, gives descriptions to the items, has cool art, etc. But one thing I found most helpful out of all of that was a page showing off the map. And that's when I noticed this. The impression that I had already explored every part of the mainland immediately got shattered. Somehow, my dumb ass managed to miss this dungeon sitting out in the open, very easily accessible. And what's more, there was a crucial detail about these things that I also neglected to acknowledge. So, get this, alright? Apparently, each of the dungeons is marked by a level. The higher the number, the more difficult it gets. And while the programmers most definitely intended for the player to go through each one in numerical order, it's not required. Granted, doing these any other way will punish you with some major difficulty spikes. Sound familiar? Say if you're just going from Dungeon 1 straight to Dungeon 4 or something without enough hearts or proper equipment. Now, due to that knowledge, it makes sense to avoid such a result as to prevent any unnecessary struggling. Yeah, the dungeon I missed was level 2. Suddenly, all of my previous plights made sense. Check this out though, cause it gets worse. After learning about said feature, I checked back on my footage to find out what order I ended up doing these things in, and this is what happened. So I started off with level 1, okay, skipped to level 3, then level 4, then level 6, only to circle back around to level 2. Remember all those influxes in difficulty I just kept passing off as me being bad? Well, now we have the real answer. I'm not bad. I'm stupid. Luckily though, as a result of my incompetence, I did manage to blaze through level 2 in like 5 minutes, so that's cool. After that, I found and acquired the magic sword in the graveyard, burnt some bushes, and found my next dungeon. Level 8? What the fuck? I mean, at least I know how many Triforce pieces there are now. Apparently that information was also relayed in the prologue, I just can't read. Oh, and this was where the manual came in handy again, as I had no clue you could bomb holes in the walls of dungeons until reading about it. However, unfortunately, this was about as far as the manual could get me, and after collecting Triforce piece number 6, with surprising ease, I hit another roadblock. I don't know why, but for some reason I just could not find the last 2 dungeons, those being level 5 and 7. Hours were spent bombing rocks, touching every stone, and lighting bushes until physically being unable to take it anymore. Listen, I'm fully aware of the whole spiel made by me 2 seconds ago about not looking anything up, and as much as I really do want to stick to it till the end, man, I gotta move on with my life. Guess I'll give this to someone more capable. In my defense, after being told exactly where both of these dungeons were, I can confidently say, probably never would have discovered them on my own. Which is less of a defense, and more me admitting I suck. So, to make a long story short, all 8 Triforce pieces are now in my possession. And yes, that is a whole triangle. I think that means this is just one piece of the main Triforce? I don't know. Well, with that, we are now in the endgame of the game. Nice one. So, as I've learned mostly what everything does now, let's do a quick recap of what we've managed to obtain so far. On the items side here, we have the magical boomerang, a better version of the standard boomerang that can stun enemies and collect items. A bow and arrows, the red candle, which burns bushes and lights rooms. It can also be used multiple times, unlike the blue variant. A flute that can teleport us to an already clear dungeon, mob bait that attracts certain enemies, healing potions you can buy from an old woman, a magical wand that shoots magical beams, and a book that lets said magical beams spawn fire. Kinda helpful, I'll admit. In the equipment/upgrades area, we got the magical sword, the third and final upgrade to our sword here, the blue ring, which acts as a defense buff, the rock moving power bracelet, and not the magical shield because it's stupid. It's an item you can buy from shops that has the ability to block more types of projectiles, but it's expensive and can be devoured by these enemies. And seeing as I'm a dumbass who can't avoid those enemies in particular at all, I'll pass. Moving over to the navigation tools now, you'll see we have the magical key that can unlock an infinite amount of doors, a raft that's used as a raft, and a ladder which will automatically be used to walk over small pits of water or lava. Oh, and lastly we have all the Triforce pieces, obviously, as well as 16 found heart containers, adding up to 19 hearts in total. Yes, you can actually get to 20, but I couldn't for the life of me find that last one. Not looking it up either, already have done that too much. And with all that, it's time to raid Ganon's lair, which I forgot to mention I found really early on by accident. Whoops. I won't go too in depth on all the kinds of stuff in this dungeon, but I am not exaggerating when I say this is by far the most confusing and difficult one of them all. But Brandon, isn't that the point? Yes. But somehow, even with that being common knowledge, I still foolishly assumed, after obtaining all these items and clearing the 8 levels, this dungeon would be like nothing in comparison. I was here for 2 hours, not even dying. The boss was just that difficult to find. That's awesome. Yeah, you don't really see every game out there nowadays giving your experience stats an actual challenge at the end. For as hard of a time as I had, that's what made it cool. Making it through this entire dungeon feels so rewarding. And also, I found this defense upgrade that was well hidden away using nothing except my brain, and I think I just peaked. So, after much work and dedication, and crying, I finally made it to Ganon. Okay, before we talk about the boss fight, the strangest thing happened to me. When entering Ganon's room, there is a door on the other side where Zelda is being held captive, which is supposed to be shut. Well, that door was open before even fighting Ganon, and without knowing where it went, I walked into it. Huh? Naturally, I reset the console, cause actually experiencing the payoff to all my struggles would be nice. And upon returning, the door did the same thing. So I'm going to ignore that and proceed with the fight anyways. To be honest, it was a lot easier than I thought. The biggest challenge was trying to figure out what to do. To kinda break it down, Ganon will become invisible and start running around the area. While doing that, orbs will spawn from him that deplete your hearts. In order to deal any damage, you have to guess where he is by swinging your sword around, which, upon actually landing a blow, will make him visible for a few seconds. Then, after doing that a couple more times, he'll do whatever that is, and you just shoot him in the face with a silver arrow, an item only found in this same dungeon. And bing bang boom, he's dead. Finally. And with that, we have completed The Legend of Zelda. However, there is one last thing I want to do here before wrapping up, being to go back and search for any secrets I may have missed on my first go-around. There was that last heart container I still never found, so... Wait. Well, I suppose that's what I get for waiting. Okay, what are we looking at here? According to non-specific sources, apparently, upon beating the game once, you'll be sent to the second quest, which is pretty much the same game again, except the enemies are harder to defeat, and all the dungeon layouts are different, as well as the items in them. Also, this happened. Yeah, I got the first Triforce piece, and I was done. Listen, I ain't doing that all again. It's a neat addition for those who like to challenge themselves, but I ain't those. Oh, and another cool thing I learned was if you name yourself Zelda on a new save file, you'll automatically start the second quest. Go wild with that knowledge. So, that was The Legend of Zelda for the Nintendo Entertainment System. A hard-hitting start to what is now a beloved, prolonged series. Being honest here, this thing intimidated me at first. From the small glimpses I've seen of this game, the idea that trying to beat it would be impossible easily became a worry for me. And while it's true I did struggle, putting that very lightly, none of it was really as bad as I made it out to be in my head. Hell, 90% of my deaths were because I accidentally did everything in the wrong order. Though, the fact that you can still beat the entire game that way makes it all the more interesting. I honestly left this title feeling pleased and excited to continue my journey through the other games in the future. Every challenge shoved in my face felt rewarding to overcome, not to mention the immense satisfaction of finding a hidden passageway. Music's pretty good too, especially the Overworld theme for something that plays on loop 95% of the time. Really, the only gripes to be had here are how unhelpful plus vague these hints are, and also how some required items or areas are just way too difficult to find in my opinion. But other than that, I had a blast. Might even call it one of the best games I've played in a while.
Well, would you look at that, my therapist was right. Turns out all I needed was a new type of game to play. Feels good to be cured, right, Brandon? He gets me.